I'm Jenny Glick. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified sex therapist. But for you in this space, I'm a way shower, mentor, guide for women mostly, and some men to help you come into the fullest expression of your life. And today we're going to talk about why it is that marriage counseling maybe did not work for you. And there are lots of reasons, but we're going to talk about three. And I say this as a marriage therapist, though I don't practice that way anymore. And I'm not downing marriage therapy if it's worked for you or if you're a therapist yourself. Some of my best friends are therapists. Amazing. You keep doing you. This is just my perspective from being in the field for almost 20 years and that kind of work, to let you know why it was that maybe it didn't work for you, because you're not broken. And sometimes when something doesn't work for us, we think that there's something wrong with us, but there's nothing wrong with you. The way that couples therapy, I think, is set up just doesn't always work. And here's why. So number one, most people, and certainly in my experience when I worked in a traditional way in an office that I had in Denver for many years, women were the ones who would call me and they would want to bring their husbands in. This wasn't always the case, but that was 85% of the people who I saw. So the unsatisfied woman would call and say, I know I have my issues in the relationship, but let me tell you about what's happening with my husband. And so when we start a couples counseling session with the focus outward on someone else, that's your first clue that there is a problem here. And part of why it is that that's a problem is because as long as you are focusing on the person outside of you and how they're failing you, how they're not showing up in the ways that you would want them to, the criticisms that they might have of you, how they're not wanting to be intimate with you the way that you want, or vice versa. Wherever you've heard this, if you're in the New Age spiritual world at all, wherever your attention goes, your energy follows, right? So this leaves you in a place where you are focusing on the other person and where it is that they are not meeting your standards. And there are so many issues with this. Number one, your partner is the one who's going to fail you, and they're probably going to fail you big time, and you're going to be really unhappy. So that's the nature of how marriage has become for so many people. And the more that you focus on that, the more problematic it's going to be. And so it's not uncommon for people to be in couples therapy for week after week after week, year after year. And the statistics are like 50% of people who go to the therapy get divorced anyway, right? And part of that is because those issues have been recurring for so many years. The average is 7 before they even see a therapist. But the other reason is that the way that we think about marriage, the way that we think about how this person needs to change so that I'm happy. So the barrier for my happiness, my joy, my satisfaction in life is this person. And then we're going to be in this tug of war experience, right, with your partner. So that's one of the primary reasons why I think couples counseling is not always the most effective choice for people. The second is that most people show up in couples counseling resonating in a frequency of blame. And so if you know anything about like energy, right, like you know what it feels like energetically to be happy. And if I were to say to you, oh gosh, you got a letter from the IRS, your energy might shift to like, torqued and distorted and gripped, right? That's a different energy. Going into couples counseling for so many people can feel incredibly stressful because there's the person initiating, right, the couples counseling, which is often the woman in heterosexual cisgendered relationships, not always, but that's certainly what I saw. And the woman feels both excited to be finally going to talk about things and maybe nervous because what's going to come of this, right? And then the husband, in most of my experience, like he's getting ready to like step up to the gauntlet here, right? Like this guy's walking in and thinks that I'm going to be aligning with his wife, ganging up on him on, to let him know all of the ways that he's failing her. which is the last thing that any man wants to do, is to show up in a counseling relationship. I had one husband say, you know, I was afraid that you were going to be like my wife's sister and just completely demoralize and disrespect me during the session, which is obviously not what I was doing ever. At any rate, so most people, however, show up in this frequency of blame, feeling like they need to blame their partner or they need to defend from the blame or criticism of their spouse. And so that energetic field is not one that creates a sense of health, of safety, and of wellness. And so if you want to heal, you need to feel safe. Number one. And a lot of therapists are amazing. And so they will create a safe container, right, for you to step into. And a lot of people who have been married for a long time don't feel safe with their partner. So the therapist might be creating a safe space, but if they have so much injury with their partner that they don't feel safe with their partner, then that therapeutic space is not going to feel or create, engender an experience of health and healing and coming together, which is what most people want. Ultimately, most people seek out couples therapy in order to have more connection, right, and more communication. Which brings me to the third reason why couples counseling doesn't actually often work for some people, and that is because the goals in therapy are super nebulous. They are things like, I want to feel connected. And when women say, I want to feel connected, men often are like, I don't know what the hell that means. We live together, we share finances, we co-parent, we like use the same bathroom. Like, how much more connected can we possibly be, right? And I have shifted my work almost entirely now solely to women, because when a woman can get really clear on what connection feels like for her, and often when I ask women, what would connection feel like? What they say is, oh, he would do A and B. And then we dig under that a little more. And then I'll say, okay, if he did A and B, how would you feel? And she would say, I feel seen, I feel valued, I feel important. And then I get to say, this is how it goes in my private sessions with people, I get to say, what if you were to practice feeling seen, valued, held, important, loved on your own? What if you just remove the barrier of him and start deeply nourishing yourself, taking 100% responsibility for your life in the ways that you can because you're in charge? And from that state, marriages can change. And you don't actually have to go to couples counseling. And that's not for everyone, and I respect that. But if that is for you, I would suggest that you pay attention to how it is that you're making your partner the barrier to what it is that you believe that you want, and try on the reality of simply having those emotional experiences, having those physical experiences, whether or not they change. And what that tends to create in a marriage is a woman who is relaxed, who is safe, who is well nourished. And in that state, she can invite her husband or her partner into something new that can feel fresh and alive and vital. I believe it only actually takes one person in a marriage in order to shift a relationship. For some women who I work with, they do this kind of, work. That's what we call it. I don't think about it like work. It's not really work. It's aligning to yourself. And then it becomes very apparent that the person who they're married to is like not their best match right now. And so if they choose to separate or divorce from that person, it's from an incredibly organic state. It's not from a state of like, you failed me, you should have done something different, right? Because you're bringing all of that attention, that gaze, back to yourself. So take 100% accountability, practice nourishing yourself, creating safe containers within yourself, and see how that transforms your marriage. If you like this video, like, subscribe, or for 50 million bonus points, share it with a friend. Thanks so much for being here.